As a child, we often read books that had bridges in them or that would be the focal point of the story altogether. Unlike childhood fairy tales, it's not always a troll that you have to worry about being underneath them, but something more sinister instead. You definitely don't want to be the Billy Goat Gruff caught under these bridges. Want to hear another ghost story? Have a seat. I have another one for you. The next set of haunted places that we will discuss are located in several places throughout the state of Georgia, which Chattanooga sits on a borderline of, as well as the state of Tennessee. There are 3 most haunted bridges in the state that gives locals the chills and the urge to stay far away from them. First up on the list is the Old Hardin Bridge, which is located in Bartow, Kingston, Georgia. It has a history marker that is in Etowah River Water Trail at the Old Hardin Bridge Landing Park. According to the Old Hardin Bridge marker's inscription, it reads the following, quote, "During the Civil War, Gilliam's Bridge at the location played a pivotal role in the advance of the Union troops south toward Atlanta. After the Civil War and the destruction of the bridge, a ferry operated at its site transporting people and goods across the river in the late 1800s. In 1886, George P. Thompson of Atlanta was awarded a contract to construct a bridge to replace the ferry at the cost of $4,480. The bridge was a wood plank 2-span through an iron truss bridge. The bridge was rebuilt by the Austin Brothers Bridge Company in 1930. It received further rehabilitation in 1950 and was used until it closed in 2007 when it was deemed unsafe for further use. A concrete bridge was completed in 2011 and the old iron bridge was removed in 2015 with the exception of the remaining stone support piers left standing on the shore and in the river. The road and bridge were named for Colonel William Hardin. During the early mid-1800s, Hardin was a landowner in several Georgia counties and was active in the 7th Division Georgia Militia, as well as political and business circles, before building a home near the site in 1847. He lived here until his death in 1854, end quote. So now that we have the history out the way, let's get into the hauntings, of course. Now, the urban legends surrounding the bridge are still spoken to this day. For instance, one tale is about a couple who accidentally drove off the bridge decades ago and unfortunately they died. The accident occurred due to a couple going down the single-lane bridge and then suddenly the headlights of another car appeared out of nowhere on the other side of the bridge. Unfortunately, the driver did not back up the car to avoid the approaching car. He instead swerved off of the bridge completely. The car went into the water below it. It is said that their spirits have haunted the area ever since. In addition to, locals say that the voices and screams can be heard near the bridge. They have also reported seeing ghostly headlights of a car, but they disappear shortly after being noticed. Present day, although the Old Hardin Bridge is still there present day, it is not the same one from back in the day. This new one was built between 2010 and 2011, and it crosses over the Etowah River located next to it. Visitors can still see the Old Hardin Bridge anytime they like because the old pillars from the original bridge are still visible. The second bridge that we're going to discuss is the Stovall Mil Covered Bridge. The history. The next bridge on the docket is located in North Georgia and also has a haunted reputation that creeps out locals. This is the Stovall Mil Covered Bridge near a small town named Helen. The bridge was built in 1895, but it was the replacement for the original bridge that was destroyed in a flood in the early 1800s. The bridge itself is really small at about 33 feet making it the shortest covered bridge in Georgia. This bridge crosses the Chickamauga Creek in White County near State Route 255. It once served as a link for the Cleveland to Clayton Road. However, by 1959, the road was moved away from the bridge. The Stovall Mil Covered Bridge took on a few different names before settling on a moniker it is best known for today, such as the Helen Bridge, for the town of Helen of course, Chickamauga Bridge, Nakuchi Bridge, and the Sati Bridge. The hauntings. The flood that wiped out the original bridge in the early 1800s is said to have had a lot of casualties. Consequently, the ghosts of those flood victims are said to haunt the bridge present day. According to an article from 11 Alive News, the locals of Helen, Georgia say that if you stand on the bridge at night, that you will see a ghost. They believe that there is a mystery in the water, and they do not encourage walking the bridge unless you want to face danger in the darkness. Furthermore, it is stated that horse-drawn carriages can be heard coming across the bridge over its wooden planks, and or babies crying in the middle of the night. The chief of police, Andy Strait, went on record to say that he could see some similarities in the techniques he found in both criminal and paranormal investigations due to ghost haunting being one of his hobbies. He goes on to say that his role in law enforcement has taught him valuable lessons like, quote, patience and learning how to be calm and sometimes an awkward situation, end quote. Chief of Police Strait also believes that the Stovall Mil Covered Bridge may be haunted. The great flood that washed away the original bridge also washed out the nearby mill as well. Consequently, many lives were lost in the floodwaters. This horrific event has contributed to generations-old ghost stories that have circulated the area ever since. Its reputation has made it one of the most haunted bridges and places in the state of Georgia. However, its crying baby stories seems to be a common link between other bridges around the country. There seems to be many states that claim to have, quote, infant bridges with wailing baby sounds that have garnered attention from its locals. For example, there's another Georgia bridge with rumors nearby in LaGrange called the Old Young's Mill Bridge. Present day, the Stovall Mil Covered Bridge is currently owned by the White County Historical Society. Due to its haunted mystique, it was featured in a film back in 1951 called I'd Climb the Highest Mountain. It starred actors such as Rory Calhoun, William Lundigan, and actress Susan Hayward. Paranormal investigations have taken place to gather data here as well. A local news station even completed an investigation on the bridge before too. Even though some investigators were not able to get any conclusive evidence, the locals in the area stand on business and say that it's still haunted. They have never stopped voicing their beliefs of the bridge and its paranormal activity. Nevertheless, the bridge is a local landmark and is open to the public to visit if they dare. Now, third and last on the list is the Spook Bridge, which is located on the county lines of Lowndes and Brooks counties in the state of Georgia. It is an abandoned opal spandrel arch bridge that looms over the Withlacoochee River on a closed section of Old Quitman Highway, which is also called Blue Springs Road and was formerly known as U.S. Route 84. Although it is known to be a town-famous relic, it is now a decaying, dangerous abandonment. The bridge is located near the cities Quitman and Valdosta. Although it has created a reputation over time for being a local hangout spot for teenagers, it is still said to be haunted. Per reports, the bridge was closed around 1920, and the actual completion date is unknown. The nearby land close to the bridge was owned by the Walter Cunningham family, and there is also a resort named the Blue Springs across the bridge by the train stop by Brooks County. The Blue Springs Resort was a known tourist attraction for Georgia, including the Blue Hole, which was a natural spring near the bridge, as well as some cabins that tourists like to stay during their visits. However, tragedies typically occur in areas with haunting rumors. This place is no different. According to Larry Cunningham, the nephew of the deceased landowner, Walter Cunningham in the mid-1940s, there was a gas truck that crushed into the bridge's railings on the Brooks County side. The accident tore between 50 to 100 feet of the railing and was never repaired. Also, Cunningham advised that there were at least 2 drownings at the Blue Hole before 1970. Another tragedy transpired in the 1940s when a flood washed out and ultimately destroyed both roads on either side of the bridge, causing it to be unsafe for vehicles to be on. Eventually, in 1950, a new bridge was built in conjunction with US 84, which reduced the amount of traffic on the bridge altogether. Unfortunately, around 1970, the famous Blue Hole had dried up and tourism stopped. Cunningham also stated that later, the Santana graffiti started to pop up around 1974 and 1975 that consisted of pentagrams. Due to the evil graffiti, the locals nicknamed it the Spook Bridge. Now let's get into these hauntings. There are many creepy tales about the Spook Bridge and the surrounding areas. For instance, there's an urban legend involving a married couple whom used to live in what is now an old broken down house that is nearby the bridge. The story goes on to say that the husband that lived there unalived his wife and deleted himself afterwards. Now, on the contrary, an alternative version to the tragedy states that the lovely couple were walking along the bridge one day and the husband suddenly pushed her off of the bridge and into the water. Consequently, it is said that she haunts the bridge and could be seen trying to climb onto the bridge from the river below it. In addition to, there's another horror story that involved a high school couple that drove to the bridge in their car and ran through the railings, went off the bridge, and swept down the river. As a result, the legends say that everyone whom drives onto the bridge can hear screaming as well as feel the vibrations as if someone is beating the hood of a vehicle. On a more insidious note, there's also a tale about a school bus full of kids that was driven off of the side of the bridge to their early demises. Now, present day, the demolished portion of the road of Old Quitman Highway has been completely blocked off on both sides for Brooks County and Lowndes County's entryways. The road is said to be ripped apart and the asphalt is now cracked, ripped, and burnt from fires. The railings and roadway are filled with graffiti, and concrete cracks are covered with broken glass shards. Occasionally, the river below the bridge floods, and when it does, the sections of the bridge become wrapped in flood water rain. The sheriffs from Brooks County expressed a huge concern about the dangers of the bridge and patrol it as well as the deserted roadway to make arrests for trespassing. One of the sheriffs doubled down on the concern for the bridge's existence due to a possible drug deal gone bad that resulted in an unaliving on the bridge before. This further promotes their belief that the bridge is a threat to the community and should be demolished. Some citizens back the notion of its removal. On another note, the bridge even made it to the big screen once on a feature film produced back in 2016. The plot featured stories from the 1870s being shot in several Brooks County areas. The bridge also made an appearance in a film. That movie was called Spook Bridge and was released on October 25th, 2017. It is a fictitious tale about a local reporter investigating the mysterious deaths of teenagers who fell off of the Spook Bridge. Still, the bridge is permanently closed off to the public due to its dangers, as well as its many self-unalivings, if you will, and unalivings that have taken place there. You know we got a censor for YouTube, so that's self-unalivings and some alivings done by others, if you know what I mean. The history of bridges goes on to show that entities can attach onto structural designs and wreak havoc on the living beings that come across them. They can become haunted just like cabins, homes, boats, and tunnels that we have explored on this channel already. Although they have a lot in common, the unique circumstances in which their hauntings occurred make them different from one another in nature. All of the paranormal activity has an origin, and all of the haunted places have a story to tell. Well, that's my job now. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. Sources are listed in the description per usual. If you enjoy this type of content, go ahead and subscribe. There's a lot more coming down the pipeline. If you liked it, then you should have put a like on it. Sharing the video is caring. And until next time, protect your energy. I'll see you in the next one.